Hello everyone and welcome to Lunchtime Learning with Embrilliance. Today we are going to be doing a quick customizing project. I saw this little design from the Itch to Stitch with their BX fonts and thought, oh, that is such a cute design, and I plan on stitching it. Well, I have stitched it on my Cuddle Suede fabric, and I'm going to turn it into a hand-sewn pencil case. So I thought I would create a quick little video showing us exactly how to merge designs, add lettering, line and distribute, a whole bunch of things that we're going to learn in this project. So let's pop on into the software and let's see how this is going to go. So here we have my design that is open on the screen. So this is the finished one, just so that you get an idea of what it's going to look like. So a couple things to pay attention. When I wanted to choose a font for this design, I wanted to make sure that it fit or reached to the top and the bottom of my pencil shape. So if you used a font or your name has a lot of dips in it, using the font choice, it may look like you were chewing on your pencil. So that was just something to keep in mind when choosing your font. We're going to be using merge stitch files so that we can bring in both pieces at the same time. So before we go any further, let's open up a brand new design page and we'll exactly see how this is done. So here's my design page. I'm going to double click on the word hoop here at the bottom to rotate my hoop so that I don't have to turn my head sideways. I am going to use the merge stitch file, and this allows me to browse to the location of the files on my computer. And this one in particular is from the Itch to Stitch. So I go to my designs folder, because I have I've created a subfolder called the Itch to Stitch, and that is where I have saved and unzipped the files. They are in a folder called Pencil Name Frame. Now, when I downloaded this design from the Itch to Stitch, I unzipped it and I deleted all the formats that I didn't need to use for this, because as you can see, this particular collection has multiple sizes. So if you wanted to do a small pencil word or a larger one, they provide you all different sizes. So I simply went into Windows Explorer or Mac Finder, went to the folder and deleted all the sizes all the formats that I didn't use, just so that I wouldn't be confused when looking in my folder here. One of the things, if you have a trouble reading or looking at the pictures here in our merge stitch file, in the upper left corner of this box, you can make the pictures a little bit larger. And that can help, especially since now I'm seeing only two at the same size, or two side by side. I can see that this is the 1/2 inch one, which would be great for a little 4x4 hoop. It comes in 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch, and they scroll all the way down until I find the one that says 2.5 inches. Now, when you select or left click on a file displayed in this merge stitch file dialog box, it is selected visually. On Mac, it is selected by a little green check mark. On Windows, it should have a blue box that says, hey, I've left clicked on this. Now, at this point, I could click on import and that will bring it into my design page. But I know I also need the eraser. So at the same time, while this one is selected, this one is green, I'm going to hold down on my keyboard the Command key. On Windows, it's the Control key. While I have that key held down on my keyboard, I'm going to left click on the eraser. That puts a check mark next to this one, so they're both selected at the same time, and I can click import, and voila, they are now added into the center of my screen. Now, or center of my design page, I should say. Now, that is the law. Whenever you merge designs in, they are automatically centered. I can left click on or select one of them here and move it off to the side so that I can see each one is where they are in my hoop. Okay, now I've planned this. I know that this design should stitch from left to right. That's just how I would make more sense to me. So that's why I moved the pencil over to the left. I'm going to insert lettering into the center and my eraser stitching on the right. When I look at my object pane here, I can see that the first thing that's going to stitch is the pencil point, and the second thing that's going to stitch is the pencil eraser. So let's get our design page to look proper by adding our name, and then we'll worry about stitching order. So I'm going to click on my lettering tool, and that brings in a lettering object into my design page. And the first thing I'll do is go into my properties here where it says text, and I'm going to change it to be the name that I want. If I want to use block font or whatever font I choose, I would size it accordingly. I decided that I wanted to play with a couple fonts. So I went to the Itch to Stitch and I noticed that they have a sketch font here. And I wondered what would it look like if I tried this one. Now, when I opened up my pencil, the two designs, I chose the 2.5 inch size. So if I choose a font for 2.5 inch, it automatically fits, or at least it fits pretty darn close to the size of my pencil that I'm looking at. The one thing I did notice though is that the top, it looks like you chewed on your pencil because it doesn't match perfectly across the top as if it was a solid wood pencil. So one thing, if your font happens to look like that, but you still want to use that style, if you change the text to all capital letters and hit the enter key, do you notice, let's move all this to the side, that sort of looks better. I think that looks more even as opposed to using capitals and smalls. So let's try using this font for this example. One thing I will want to make sure is that these designs are even, because if they're off when you stitch them, it's going to be pretty obvious. It may not be, well, it's obvious now because I moved it cattywampus, but at least now we'll see it's perfect. We'll fix it. Not a problem. To fix it, this is going to be done using Align and Distribute. So I'm going to select all three of these parts together. Select them all by clicking and holding and dragging a box. I'm going to go up to Align and Distribute here. And this dialog box asks me, how do you want to align them? So I look at the little pictures here. Okay, so the way I want to align them is the centers going in this direction. So I want the center of my pencil point to be aligned with the center of my text, with the center of my eraser. So I'm going to choose center. If I click apply, it's pretty obvious. You'll see it's going to pop down right into place, and all three pieces are now aligned perfectly well. I also want to make sure that the space between this wooden part of the pencil and the text, as well as the space here, is even. So I need to make sure they are distributed evenly. So if I click on distribute and choose spacing, it may not be obvious because it looks pretty darn good. But when I click apply, it just moved just a hair. And now I know it is perfect. So I'm going to click close. While those three are selected, I don't want to accidentally move them. So while they're all selected, I'm going to go to my edit menu and choose to group them. That grouping function, all it does, it says is if you click on something that is grouped, it selects everything in that group. That means you can't accidentally move something out of the way. However, if you click on that, say the eraser, it selects just the eraser in that object pane, and I can move that eraser all by itself in my display pane. So these two are not really connected. That group function only has to do with how things are clicked on in the display pane. It's still grouped now. So if I click on it here, it's still grouped together, but it's not where I want it to be. So let me click on the undo button so that it goes back to where it's supposed to be. And it's still grouped, so I can click on it here, click on anything it will always grab all three together. So that's one way of making sure that everything stays where it's supposed to be, using the group function. Now I want to make sure that Katie is done in a yellow thread so that it looks more like a pencil. So I'm going to select it, click on the color chip, go into my colors here, and choose something that looks pretty darn close. Now this looks like a pencil to me, so it's ready to go. However, when I look at the stitching order, I need to make sure that it's going to stitch the pencil point, then the lettering, then the eraser. So I'm going to need to move the letters above the eraser. I will do that by left-clicking on it to select it, right-clicking on that selection and choosing Move Earlier. And that will put it up into the middle so that when I run my sew simulator, I can see that it is going to stitch from left to right in an order that makes sense to me. Now I'm getting ready to go to my embroidery machine, and because I've already decided I am stitching it on this cuddle fabric so that I don't want to get a hoop burn on this. This is like a marine vinyl where you don't really want to hoop it. I do want to float it on my stabilizer. So I need to attach this fabric to the stabilizer, and I do that. It will be forgiven because it's a suede fabric. I will do that with a basting box. So I will go to my utility menu and choose to baste my design. If you notice, my design's a little bit off center, so I'm going to click on center button here on my menu bar, and that centers everything in place. I do want to make sure that my basting box is a little bit larger. So while I'm going to click on the basting box, and I want to make it a little bit taller in these directions so that the stitches don't get caught in that basting box. While this box is selected, if I hold down the Shift key on my keyboard and left click and drag, can you see that it only drags up and down evenly from the center out? So holding the Shift key is a great shortcut if you want to resize from center out. And because I only grabbed the top adjuster and not a corner adjuster, it only sized up and down. I'd like to do that on the sides here, but I'm not sure I have that much wiggle room. So instead of dragging it from using my freehand select here, where I go in this menu box here, or my menu button here where it says right and left, 295, I know that the most I can make this is 300 millimeters because that's the size of my hoop. But if I go 299 and hit enter, that's going to be probably the maximum size. It's just a little bit of wiggle room, and it allows me to use my basting stitch there. So there you have it. Thank you for taking some time with me today during our lunchtime learning here on the Embrilliance Facebook page. Hopefully you got some tips and tricks on how to create this quick and easy project using the designs from the Itch to Stitch. Thanks and have a great day.